Holger Peterson, who I think you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I was talking to Holger, and he said something interesting. He said, Eric is very particular about the dates that he will accept, and apparently Edmonton's been on your list. You've been here in 2003, and I want to talk about that experience. 2016 with Corey Harris, and here you are with Michael Jerome Brown. And I guess the question is, what brings you back to Edmonton? What is the appeal of this festival in terms of your experience?
Well, it was one of the first Canadian festivals that I had a chance to perform at back in the day. I think I've been here at least 4 times, maybe 5. Could be the 5th time.
Yeah.
But the scope of it is amazing. I've met amazing musicians up close, sharing stages with people like Solomon Burke. I think I recorded something here live on stage with Wilson Pickett one year. I've just heard amazing music here and been received with such warmth. The atmosphere is just a caress. Yeah.
Well, I was talking again to Holger when I went back to 2003, and you came out, and you're a very productive fellow. I mean, you came here to perform in 2003. You hooked up with a number of artists and produced an album called Friends that came out in 2004. Tell me a little bit about that story in terms of producing that at that time.
We were fortunate that it all sort of seemed to be aligned. It was destined to be. I had a chance at that moment to record with several of my heroes. Taj Mahal was there. I recorded at that same session with Harry Manx, with Jelly Tunkara from Mali, the wonderful guitarist. Michael Jerome Brown was with me. Mr. Kapana Led from Hawaii. So it was an amazing, fortuitous meeting of many of my favorite musicians. Friends they are and were. And I was just so happy that it all seemed to click. We had to arrange the studio on very short notice. It just all seemed destined to happen.
Just out of curiosity, which studio? It was in Edmonton, the studio that you...
Yes.
Which one was it? Do you remember?
What's our famous guy's name? He also went out to California to record and change his studio. I'm not sure it's still in existence. I'll have to check the record.
All right, that's okay. Yeah, I'll fill that in after the fact.
Great engineer, though. Great engineer, great studio owner who facilitated everything. Yeah.
And that year as well, you connected with Taj Mahal, I believe.
Yeah, well, Taj is a friend from way back and a big brother for me, a mentor, a pathfinder, you could say. And the fact that he was on hand was like a cherry on the cake, I've had a chance to record with many of my heroes and sheroes, including Mavis and Pop Staples, back in 1997. So, I can just say, I've been blessed with amazing meetings and connections.
Yeah, and you've also recorded with Guy Davis, Charlie Musselwhite. I mean, it's quite a thing. So I got to ask you. I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't. You got anything on the side you're planning while you're here this time? Or?
Good question. No, I'm actually just going to be hooking up with some dear old friends who were the first people who kind of introduced me to this whole area. I remember my friend Thomas Slaymaker was my driver who introduced me on the way to Jasper, because we did that festival there. He introduced me to the music of Don Ross, who I'm looking forward to hearing live again here during this festival. But no, I'm not going to be recording as far as I know. But I'm looking forward to everything that's on the schedule.
Damn, I was looking forward to jamming with you. I guess that's on the plate. By the way, congratulations on the Grammy nomination for Riding, your album that came out in 2023. One thing I'd like to do, if it's okay with you, is to go back to your late father, Leon Gibb, and I mean, Bibb, sorry, Leon Bibb, and the thing is, what a background you come from. He was a sort of a two-sided man. He was not only a musical theatrical artist, and I mean, he was in front of people like Cicely Tyson, and he actually was in a film with Sidney Poitier. Two films, actually, yeah, in the late '60s, in fact. And the thing is obviously he got you, I guess, exposed to music as an artist. And I just wanted. Oh, and the other thing, the fact that you're part of history. I mean, he was an activist who had a close association with no less than Martin Luther King. What was it like growing up in that environment for you? Because I would think that there was not only the musical influence on you, but there was this worldly, political, I mean, at the heart. I mean, your dad, he performed at the March of Washington in 1965.
Yeah.
I mean, you're connected to history. What was it like growing up in that environment?
Well, yeah. First, he was at the March on Washington in 1963, but he was also, as you mentioned, in '65 at that famous march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama, with King and company, where he performed with Harry Belafonte and Joan Baez and Peter Paul and Mary. The whole gang was there. I say the whole gang because I met these people in my own home. I've had an amazing upbringing, surrounded not only, as you say, by stellar musicians, iconic figures from not only the folk community, but jazz. My uncle was John Lewis from the Modern Jazz Quartet. So the music was a given. The activism was also a given. You know, my dad's mentor and great friend was Paul Robeson, who became my godfather. Pete Seeger was a friend of the family's. You know, Millard Lampell, Woody Guthrie of the Almanac Singers. These were all people who were around my family home. And the music was inseparable from what was going on at the time, whether it was the civil rights movement or the anti-Vietnam War movement. That seemed to all be one mission, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is, at the age of 11, you met Bob Dylan, who said something very interesting to you. Share that story with me.
As I've done for so many wonderful interviews through the years, I wish I could thank him for the amount of PR mileage I've gotten out of that one conversation. You know, I came down in my pajamas to meet him because he showed up very late one December evening. My dad had a big party for Showbiz Folk. He was the guest of honor, and he finally showed up. And I just went over to him. I said, "Hey, man, I'm Eric. I play guitar too." And he deigned to have a conversation with me. I think he was a little tired of all the hubbub around him, and this curious 11-year-old, you know, was somebody who felt like, yeah, I can relate. So we talked about guitar playing. He said, "Keep it simple. Forget all that fancy stuff." And I assumed even at that age, I was aware that he was pretty critical of the huge commercialization and maybe cosmeticizing of the kind of folk music that really touched him. So, yeah, I think he was both disdainful of what was going on and also eager as a beaver to be in the center of it and be happy. He was twice my age. I was 11, he was 22.
Oh, that's an amazing story. I mean, quite often there are music writers who describe you as a fiery singer-songwriter. It's like you've taken blues, but you put your own twist on it, and which is why you are distinct, I believe, in that whole blues arena, because there are so many players and artists, but you've really put something out there that is incredibly distinct. And the other thing I really found quite interesting is that you studied psychology and Russian at Columbia University. So not only are you an artist, you're an intellect as well. Does that influence your creative process?
Well, the people who were around my family home when I was growing up were all kinds of, artistic, intellectual, creative people. So that whole mix of literary, film, theater, political activism, all of that. My dad had a tour of the Soviet Union in 1963. I was 13 years old when I celebrated my birthday in Kiev at the end of that tour.
Oh, wow.
We stopped in Stockholm on the way back to New York, where I now, reside. So sort of all roads have kind of led to Rome for me. The psychology Russian thing at Columbia was a short chapter. I felt out of place at that time in New York City at Columbia University when there was so much that was going on in the world that seemed to be too far removed from that university kind of campus life. So I took my guitar and lit out for, Paris, and eventually ended up in Sweden, settling down there. So yeah, it's been a journey, and it's been full of wonderful, wonderful influences and great people and musicians.
Well, you still have a footprint in the UK. I mean, you
Big
founded
time.
Manhattan Records. Is that still
Yeah.
happening? Yeah.
Together with my manager at the time, Alan Robinson, we did create a label called Manhattan Records, and Alan is still doing business. With that, I've moved on to some other circles that produce my recordings. But the UK, I moved to England in 1997, I believe, from Sweden, because I finally had a manager and a whole kind of support system that I've been struggling to establish for years. So when I appeared at the London Blues Festival in '96, the day after my appearance, a guy came up to me, Alan Robinson, and said, "Do you have management?" I said, "No." He said, "Do you want a manager?" I said, "Yes." And the rest was history. A few months later, I moved the whole family to England.
Wow. Anything in the works right now? I mean,
Always.
What you working on?
I'm happy to announce the fairly imminent release of a new record called In the Real World.
Oh, cool.
And it was recorded in part at Peter Gabriel's Real World Studios in Bath. Great studio, great chief engineer, Katie May. An amazing experience because the place itself is so inspiring. It's probably one of the more ambitious recordings of my career, including the wonderful playing of Robbie McIntosh, a consummate guitarist and musician who I've admired. I met Robbie years ago. We recorded actually back in the late 90s, I think, a couple of tracks, and then we kind of fell out of contact, and we've reestablished that. So he's all over the new record, In the Real World. Look for that in October.
I am looking forward to it. Might reach out to you, try and get a signed release of some kind. And now you're here with Michael Jerome Brown. Want to talk a little bit about him because you're performing with him today. How did you guys hook up?
Michael is one of the most authentically brilliant blues players and singers I've met through all of my years. I've met the older folks who were my heroes. I mean, I saw Son House when I was 15 at Newport. But Michael, who I met the first time, I try to recall, it could have been at one of these festivals here, could have been Calgary. I'd have to check with him. My memory is a little bit scattered, but as soon as I heard Michael, maybe it was at the festival in Jasper. Anyway, as soon as I heard him, I said, this guy is completely unique. His vocabulary, his guitar vocabulary when it comes to earlier acoustic blues traditions is phenomenal. I don't know anybody quite like him. So I just, said, Michael, you're wonderful. One day I hope we'll be able to record together, play together, and it's happened. We've shared stages through the years. We recorded a record with a harmonica player from France named Jean-Jacques Moutot, an album called Migration Blues that was Grammy nominated in 2016. We were all very excited. We thought it was a really strong album. the Rolling Stones released a blues album that year. I say no more. But it was a groovy experience to be in that whole milieu, that whole environment of the whole Grammy thing. It's quite exciting to see your name up in lights like that.
Well, I mean, obviously your journey is going to continue. We're both youngsters, right? I mean, we're just I always tell people we're just getting started.
I feel like I'm just figuring this stuff out. I'm finally getting really comfortable. Yeah.
Well, Eric Bibb, it's an honor to have met you. I was looking forward to this for a long time. Looking forward to your performance today with Michael Jerome Brown at the Edmonton Folk Music Festival, 45th iteration, and your current appearance. And I imagine down the road we'll see you again. But thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, man.
It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed all your questions.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Clear. That was great.
Okay, I'm just going to take over. We've got an audience watching.
Oh, yeah.
as well.
Okay,
So
right.
thanks for that. I mean,
Thanks, audience.
Right.
what you were saying is right. I enjoyed every question and the depth of the interview as well. I reconnected through David here, who's also Scottish.
Absolutely.
Right.
We got it. I think we're all Scottish in the end. Actually, I actually have Scottish ancestry. So yeah.
My daughter lives in Edinburgh.
She's in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
You were saying she's in the Hebrides just now.
Right now,
Yeah.
we love Scotland. Edinburgh is one of my favorite towns. We love going there. I've had wonderful experiences playing at Queen's Hall.
Now, you mentioned the Queen's Hall.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful gig. Churches always are, but that is a particularly good one. And you mentioned Alan, and I've lost contact with Alan, but I'm reminded it was Alan who introduced us. So that was right back at the onset.
Yes, it was in the early days. Yeah, I really got my foothold in England, Ireland, and Scotland during that whole late '90s period when I hooked up with Alan Robinson and Mike Vernon. So that was a wonderful experience for me to get to know that part of the world.
I can't wait for Robbie Robinson.
He's too much, and he's a lovely guy too.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, we're just about ready to release singles from that album.
Well, he comes to Alpo Guitar Festival quite regularly, and I did a radio show at Alpo.
When is that festival?
Some 15 years, October.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll probably be next year.
Yeah.
If you're there, I'm going to
get it.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks, gentlemen. Thanks
Pleasure.
for letting me in on this. It was wonderful. It's been great.
I think I'm going to have an accent by the time I'm done.
Well,
Good speaking to you.
It was great talking to you. Great talk. Did you get a picture?
Subscribe.
Here, I'll just sit over here.
I'll move out the way.
All right.
And
Don't want to use Mr. Bibb's time, I tell you. All right, here we go.
Here on
here we are.
TV. Thanks again, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you as well.
Thank you, Eric. It's like seriously.
We'll meet again.
Yes,
This has been the highlight of the festival for me.
Eric, I think Rob just wants to
Sure, picture,
Yeah, I'll get out of the way here.
What's in there?
But yeah. Make sure.
No more. I meant to ask you something on the studio as well, but
I think we'll mosey over to the stage where we can drop off the guitars there.
enjoy your weekend, guys. Have a great show.
Thank you. We'll do.
What's your daughter's name?
Is this yours?
Hedwig.
Well,
She just graduated last summer from the university in Edinburgh.
in population, but it's a great musical community.
Yeah.
And there are great musical communities in Canada, like Winnipeg and Montreal and Toronto, of course. And we're lucky to be in what is a really amazing musical community in Edmonton.
So, right, this is why you guys have got 3 people working on this, and I've only got me.
Don't worry. No worries.
But the sound wasn't on.
For the whole thing?
For your bit, not the whole thing. After
Oh, okay.
Eric, I turned the sound off.
You
But we're
want
still
to
live.
repeat something? That is mine.
Yeah. Well, you know what I'll do? I'll start it again.